Welcome to the Buddhist audio bookshelf. Today, we're diving into Beyond Quarrels, finding peace through the impermanence of life. Join us on this enlightening journey. If you appreciate the Buddha's teachings, please help us share this wisdom by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Thank you for being with us. Introduction: Embracing mortality in a modern world. In today's world, where every second seems to be filled with distractions, obligations, and the pressures of modern life, one profound truth is often overlooked: we are all mortal. This reality is a cornerstone of the Buddha's teachings in the Dhammapada, a collection of verses that encapsulate the Buddha's wisdom on how to live a life free from suffering. In one verse, the Buddha says, "There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels." On the surface, this may seem like a simple reflection on life and death, but its implications reach deep into our everyday lives. The Buddha is teaching us not just to reflect on the inevitability of death but to live with that understanding in a way that transforms our relationships and brings peace to our minds. In our fast-paced, digitally connected age, people often experience increased anxiety, stress, and division. Despite having more ways to connect, we find ourselves more divided by opinions, politics, race, and religion. We cling to grudges, engage in heated arguments, and hold tightly to our sense of being right, sometimes at the expense of relationships that could bring us joy and support. When we fail to realize that our time here is finite, we squander moments of potential reconciliation, compassion, and peace. The culture of denial: escaping the reality of death. One of the most striking characteristics of modern society is its avoidance of the topic of death. From advancements in medicine to the glamour of youth culture, we are constantly encouraged to ignore the fact that we will one day die. Social media bombards us with images of perfection, youthful bodies, flawless lifestyles, and endless pursuits of success and happiness. Even in conversations about health and wellness, we often focus on extending life and achieving a kind of immortality through physical fitness, medical interventions, or material success. However, this denial of death comes at a great cost. It keeps us from confronting our deepest fears, from understanding the impermanence of life, and from cultivating compassion for others. By pretending that we will live forever, or at least not acknowledging our mortality, we become consumed by the trivial. We obsess over winning arguments, holding on to grudges, and proving ourselves right, rather than seeking understanding and reconciliation. The Buddha's teaching, however, offers a stark contrast to this cultural norm. He encourages us to face the reality of death not as something to fear, but as a guiding principle that can liberate us from unnecessary conflict and suffering. By remembering that we, and everyone we know, will one day pass away, we are encouraged to let go of petty disagreements and focus on what truly matters: kindness, understanding, and peace. How mortality can bring peace. Understanding our mortality does not mean becoming obsessed with death or living in fear. On the contrary, it offers a unique opportunity to live more fully and peacefully. When we recognize that our time is limited, we are less likely to waste it on anger, resentment, or quarrels. Instead, we are motivated to focus on love, compassion, and meaningful connections. This teaching has profound implications for our personal relationships, our interactions with society, and even our inner peace. It provides a framework for resolving conflicts, healing old wounds, and cultivating a sense of purpose in our daily lives. Let's explore how embracing the reality of death can bring peace to various aspects of modern life. The endless cycle of conflict in modern life. Conflict is a natural part of human life, but in today's world, it seems to have escalated. Whether it's political divisions, cultural conflicts, or personal grievances, we are constantly bombarded with messages that encourage us to take sides, to defend our positions, and to see others as opponents. Social media, news outlets, and even entertainment often thrive on conflict, reinforcing the idea that we must fight to be heard, understood, or respected. This culture of conflict seeps into our personal lives as well. We argue with family members over political beliefs, hold grudges against friends who may have wronged us, and even compete with colleagues at work in ways that breed resentment. These conflicts, both large and small, take a toll on our mental and emotional well-being. They drain our energy, create stress, and make it difficult to find peace in our everyday lives. But what if we approached these conflicts with the understanding that we do not have all the time in the world? What if we truly understood that life is fleeting and that every moment spent in anger or resentment is a moment we can never get back? By embracing the reality of death, we can begin to see conflicts for what they really are, temporary distractions from what truly matters. When we know that our time is limited, the need to win arguments or hold on to grudges suddenly seems less important. Instead, we are more likely to prioritize reconciliation, understanding, and compassion. Settling quarrels, a practical approach. In personal relationships, conflicts often arise from misunderstandings, miscommunications, and the desire to be right. When we argue with loved ones, it's easy to become entrenched in our own perspectives, convinced that we are justified in our anger or hurt. But the Buddha's teaching invites us to take a step back and ask ourselves, is this conflict worth the time we have left? If we truly understood that both we and the person we are arguing with could die at any moment, would we still hold on to our anger? Would we still prioritize being right over being kind? In today's society, where divisive opinions are often amplified by social media and cultural trends, this teaching is particularly powerful. It offers us a way to step outside of the cycles of conflict and see the bigger picture. By remembering our mortality, we can settle our quarrels with greater ease, knowing that peace and harmony are far more valuable than the fleeting satisfaction of winning an argument. Practical steps to apply this teaching in daily life include: pause and reflect. When you find yourself in the middle of a conflict, pause for a moment and reflect on the fact that both you and the other person are mortal. Ask yourself, is this argument worth the limited time we have? How can I bring peace to this situation instead of prolonging the conflict? Choose understanding over being right. Often, conflicts persist because we are more focused on proving our point than on understanding the other person's perspective. By shifting our focus from winning to understanding, we create space for reconciliation and healing. Let go of grudges. Holding on to grudges is one of the most damaging things we can do to ourselves and our relationships. When we hold on to resentment, we carry the weight of that anger with us, preventing us from experiencing peace. Letting go of grudges becomes easier when we remember that life is short, and that holding on to anger only harms us in the long run. The impact of mortality on societal conflicts. On a broader scale, the Buddha's teaching about death can also be applied to societal conflicts. In today's world, we are often divided by political ideologies, religious beliefs, and cultural differences. These divisions are amplified by media outlets that thrive on conflict, creating a sense of us versus them that perpetuates hatred and mistrust. However, when we acknowledge that all humans, regardless of their beliefs or backgrounds, share the same fate of death, we begin to see the futility of these divisions. We are all part of the same human experience, and none of us is exempt from the reality of mortality. This shared truth can become a powerful tool for fostering compassion, empathy, and understanding across societal divides. In this context, embracing mortality helps us shift our focus from differences to commonalities. It allows us to see beyond the superficial labels of politics, religion, or race and recognize the shared humanity in everyone we meet. This shift in perspective can lead to more peaceful interactions, both on an individual level and within society as a whole. Mortality and personal peace. In addition to helping us settle external conflicts, embracing the reality of death can also bring peace to our inner lives. Many of the struggles we face, stress, anxiety, fear, stem from our attachment to things we cannot control. We worry about the future, obsess over our careers, and cling to material possessions, all while trying to avoid the fact that none of these things will last forever. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that everything is impermanent, including our own lives. By accepting this, we can begin to let go of the things that cause us stress and anxiety. We can focus on what truly matters, living with kindness, compassion, and mindfulness in the present moment. When we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, we free ourselves from the constant tension that comes with attachment. This doesn't mean we stop caring about our lives or our goals, rather, it means we approach life with a sense of acceptance and peace, knowing that everything is temporary. living fully by embracing mortality. In the end, the Buddha's teaching that, those who realize we all must die settle their quarrels, is a profound reminder that life is short, and our time here is precious. By embracing the reality of death, we can let go of unnecessary conflicts, cultivate compassion for others, and find peace within ourselves. In a world that often encourages us to focus on winning, achieving, and accumulating, this teaching offers a refreshing perspective. It reminds us that true peace and happiness come not from external success or validation, but from living with an open heart, free from anger, resentment, and attachment. By living with the awareness that we are all mortal, we can approach each day with gratitude, kindness, and the intention to bring peace to ourselves and those around us. Chapter 1: The Denial of Death in Today's Culture and Its Impact on Our Lives. In today's society, the topic of death is often shrouded in discomfort, avoidance, and even denial. As humans, we naturally gravitate towards the things that keep us alive and comfortable, whether that's through medical advancements, entertainment, or the pursuit of wealth and status. But this denial of death, so prevalent in the modern world, has a profound impact on our mental and emotional well-being. It fuels much of the anger, resentment, and conflict we experience both personally and collectively. This chapter explores how the refusal to acknowledge our mortality in modern culture leads to increased anxiety, prolongs conflicts, and prevents us from achieving peace in our lives. It will also present practical strategies for embracing this uncomfortable truth in a way that fosters reconciliation and emotional freedom. The culture of avoidance: why we don't talk about death. In many cultures today, especially in the West, there's a tendency to distance ourselves from the reality of death. We're constantly bombarded with messages about anti-aging products, health supplements, and lifestyle choices that promise to extend life. Social media platforms, with their carefully curated feeds, often showcase idealized versions of people's lives, beautiful vacations, promotions, parties, none of which hint at the impermanence of life. This relentless focus on vitality and success makes death seem like a distant or irrelevant subject. Yet, as the Buddha's teachings in the Dhammapada remind us, death is inevitable for all of us. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels. These words hold a timeless wisdom, pointing out a universal truth that can guide our lives. If we fail to recognize our impermanence, we are likely to get caught up in petty concerns, fights over small matters, the pursuit of fleeting achievements, and the endless cycle of trying to control things beyond our grasp. When society pushes the conversation about death to the margins, it reinforces the illusion that we have all the time in the world. This illusion can make us delay important reconciliations, take our relationships for granted, and overvalue things like wealth or fame that won't matter when our time runs out. How the fear of death fuels conflict and anxiety. The avoidance of death creates a kind of underlying anxiety that permeates many aspects of modern life. When we pretend that death isn't looming, we develop unrealistic expectations about permanence, control, and security. This creates an emotional fragility in the face of life's inevitable challenges, leading to more frequent conflicts and feelings of distress. For example, think about how many arguments we engage in, not because of deep philosophical differences, but because of a need to assert dominance or maintain an image. In family disputes, professional disagreements, or even online debates, people often become fixated on winning or proving themselves right. The underlying reason behind much of this behavior is the desire for validation and the illusion that victory will grant us some form of lasting happiness or security. Yet, when viewed through the lens of mortality, these quarrels seem petty. Imagine two coworkers who have been feuding for months over a promotion. Each believes they deserve the role, and their ongoing rivalry becomes a source of stress, not just for them, but for everyone in the office. In the grand scheme of life, is this conflict worth the energy and negativity it brings? If both individuals were to reflect on the fact that their lives are finite and that one day, neither of them would care about the title they fought so hard for, it might prompt a shift in perspective. The Buddha's teaching encourages us to see how fleeting these struggles are and to prioritize peace over winning an argument. This denial of mortality also manifests in our constant pursuit of material wealth and external success. We work long hours, often sacrificing time with loved ones, for the sake of accumulating more money, a bigger house, or a higher status. But as many who have faced terminal illness will attest, when confronted with death, these things lose their importance. No one on their deathbed wishes they had spent more time in the office or been more competitive. Instead, they wish they had been more present, more loving, and more forgiving. Death in the digital age: how social media distorts our perception of life and death. The rise of social media has exacerbated our society's denial of death. Platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok often present a sanitized, idealized version of life, where everything appears vibrant and eternal. The constant flood of updates, likes, and shares creates a sense of immediacy that can make us feel disconnected from the broader reality of our own impermanence. Social media amplifies the need for validation and status, often encouraging users to compare themselves with others. This endless comparison can lead to feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, and even resentment. When we see others living what appears to be a more glamorous, successful, or happy life, we may become more fixated on superficial accomplishments, reinforcing the idea that we must win at life. This pressure to perform or maintain a certain image distracts us from the deeper truths of life, such as our shared mortality. The Buddha's teaching about death can be particularly relevant here. If we remember that everyone, including the people we see on social media, will eventually face the same fate, it can help us move beyond comparison and competition. The recognition of impermanence brings a sense of humility and perspective that can be deeply freeing. We begin to see that the curated images of perfection are just that, curated and impermanent, and we can focus instead on what truly matters: kindness, compassion, and connection. How embracing mortality can bring peace to your life. The Buddha's teaching that those who realize we must die settle their quarrels is not a call to dwell on death, but rather to use it as a tool for living a more peaceful, meaningful life. By accepting that our time here is limited, we can let go of unnecessary conflicts, focus on healing relationships, and prioritize what truly matters. Here are some practical steps for embracing mortality in a way that brings peace and harmony to your life. Practice reflection on impermanence, anicca. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is the idea of impermanence. Everything in life, including our own lives, is constantly changing. You can practice reflecting on this by regularly reminding yourself of the fleeting nature of your experiences. When you find yourself in a heated argument or holding on to a grudge, take a moment to step back and ask yourself, is this worth my limited time and energy? More often than not, you'll find that the answer is no. Mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for becoming more aware of the present moment and the transient nature of life. Through mindfulness meditation, you can train your mind to observe thoughts and emotions without attaching to them. This practice helps you recognize when you're caught in negative patterns, such as anger or resentment, and allows you to let go before they escalate into prolonged conflict. In moments of frustration, anger, or stress, pause and take a few deep breaths. Reflect on the impermanence of the situation and your emotions. This simple practice can prevent arguments from spiraling out of control and help you respond with greater patience and understanding. Apology and forgiveness. Life is too short to carry the burden of resentment. When you acknowledge that your time, and the time of those around you, is limited, it becomes easier to forgive and seek forgiveness. Apologizing when you've hurt someone or letting go of a past wrong does not mean you condone harmful behavior, but it frees you from the emotional weight of carrying grudges. Consider making it a regular practice to reflect on your relationships. Is there someone you've wronged or someone with whom you've had a long-standing conflict? Reaching out to settle that quarrel can bring immense relief, both for you and the other person. Remember that tomorrow is not promised, and the time to mend relationships is now. Gratitude practice. Acknowledging our mortality can also help cultivate a sense of gratitude for the people and experiences in our lives. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we begin to appreciate the present moment more deeply. Regularly practicing gratitude, whether through journaling or simple reflection, can shift your focus from what you lack or what frustrates you to the blessings you currently have. Each day, take a few moments to reflect on what you're grateful for, whether it's a kind gesture from a friend, a peaceful moment in nature, or simply being alive. This practice can transform your outlook on life, making it easier to let go of anger and focus on the good. Chapter 2, The Wisdom of Impermanence. Expanded version 2000 words. In today's world, we are conditioned to seek permanence in almost every aspect of our lives. From career stability and long-term relationships to financial security and health, the modern cultural narrative pushes us toward seeking control, certainty, and lasting success. We plan for the future, invest in our health, and set long-term goals, all with the expectation that life will follow a predictable, enduring trajectory. While striving for stability can be healthy, the underlying denial of impermanence often leads to suffering. The Buddha's teaching of impermanence, anicca in Pali, offers a transformative perspective that, when embraced, can bring peace and alleviate the anxieties tied to our desire for permanence. In Buddhist philosophy, impermanence is not simply an abstract concept but a lived truth. Everything, our bodies, relationships, thoughts, and emotions, are subject to change. Nothing is fixed, and nothing is forever. This truth is often resisted in modern society, where we cling to the illusion of control over our lives, leading to disappointment, anxiety, and conflict when things don't go as planned. Understanding and embracing impermanence helps us live more fully in the present, let go of our attachments, and find peace amid life's constant flux. In this chapter, we will explore how the wisdom of impermanence can be integrated into our daily lives, bringing practical peace and balance to modern living. The illusion of permanence in modern culture. Our resistance to impermanence is fueled by cultural messages that promote the illusion of permanence. From advertisements for anti-aging products to the pressure to secure, forever, relationships, we are encouraged to seek and maintain a sense of control over life's inevitable changes. Social media further amplifies this by creating curated versions of reality where perfection seems achievable, and permanence appears desirable. Instagram posts that showcase picture-perfect moments, job promotions, and milestones can make us believe that life should always be on an upward trajectory. In addition, the corporate world often emphasizes long-term planning and career success, encouraging individuals to tie their self-worth to job titles, achievements, and material security. While there is value in planning, it's important to acknowledge that the future is inherently uncertain. Careers can change, relationships can evolve, and external circumstances can shift in unexpected ways. By overinvesting in the idea that success, youth, and relationships can be permanent, we set ourselves up for disappointment when these aspects of life inevitably change. The COVID-19 pandemic is a stark reminder of this. In an instant, people's lives were disrupted. Jobs were lost, social connections frayed, and health became a fragile priority. This collective experience highlighted the futility of clinging to the belief that life will always be stable and predictable. In the face of such global uncertainty, the wisdom of impermanence becomes especially relevant. It teaches us not to fear change but to adapt and flow with it, finding peace in the present moment rather than resisting what cannot be controlled. The anxiety of change and the search for control. The modern obsession with control often leads to anxiety. In a world where technological advancements promise more control over our surroundings, people increasingly struggle with the unpredictability of life. Anxiety disorders are on the rise, particularly among younger generations who have grown up with the internet's constant stream of information, comparisons, and expectations. The fear of failure, the pressure to maintain success, and the need to secure future happiness contribute to a heightened sense of unease. We often try to mitigate this anxiety by seeking certainty. Whether through financial planning, health optimization, or relationship management, we attempt to lock down aspects of our lives that we believe will provide lasting happiness. However, the desire for permanence in an impermanent world is like building sandcastles at the edge of the tide. It's only a matter of time before the waves wash everything away. Understanding impermanence doesn't mean giving up on planning or striving for a good life. Rather, it encourages us to do so with the understanding that change is inevitable. This shift in mindset can alleviate much of the anxiety associated with the future. When we recognize that everything is in flux, we can stop gripping so tightly to outcomes and learn to ride the waves of change with grace. Instead of seeing change as a threat, we begin to see it as a natural part of life's rhythm, which can be both freeing and empowering. Impermanence and relationships, letting go of attachment. One of the most challenging areas where impermanence plays out is in our relationships. In romantic partnerships, friendships, and family dynamics, we often cling to the belief that these connections will remain constant. We expect people to always be the same, always loving, always supportive, always available. When relationships change, whether through distance, disagreement, or personal growth, we can feel betrayed by the impermanence we were trying to deny. Social expectations also pressure people to find, forever, relationships, particularly in romantic contexts. The idea of soulmates or the one suggests that if we find the right person, the relationship will be stable and eternal. However, relationships, like everything else, are subject to change. People evolve, circumstances shift, and feelings fluctuate. By accepting the impermanent nature of relationships, we can approach them with a sense of fluidity and freedom rather than control and fear. Impermanence in relationships also teaches us the value of cherishing the present moment. Instead of taking loved ones for granted or assuming they will always be there, we can develop a deeper appreciation for the time we share with them. We become more attentive, kinder, and more forgiving when we realize that every moment with someone could be the last. Quarrels, resentment, and grudges become less significant in the face of impermanence, as we understand that holding on to anger wastes the precious time we have with others. A practical approach to integrating impermanence into our relationships involves practicing non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean being indifferent or emotionally distant, rather, it's about letting go of the need to control or possess others. It's the ability to love deeply without clinging, understanding that relationships will ebb and flow. When we stop trying to force permanence, we allow space for relationships to grow and evolve naturally, free from the pressure of unrealistic expectations. The practice of mindfulness, anchoring in the present. Mindfulness is one of the most effective ways to live with impermanence. At its core, mindfulness is about being fully present in each moment, without judgment or resistance. When we are mindful, we observe the impermanence of our thoughts, emotions, and surroundings. We notice that feelings come and go, just as sensations in the body change from moment to moment. This awareness helps us cultivate a sense of acceptance toward life's transience. In modern culture, mindfulness has gained significant popularity as a way to reduce stress, anxiety, and depression. While often used in secular contexts, its roots are deeply embedded in Buddhist philosophy, particularly in the recognition of impermanence. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to embrace the present moment as it is, without the need to cling to it or wish it away. This acceptance of the present moment can reduce much of the suffering that comes from wanting things to be different than they are. For example, imagine being stuck in traffic, an everyday occurrence that can trigger frustration or anger. Through the lens of impermanence, we can remind ourselves that this traffic is temporary. The emotions we feel, whether irritation or impatience, are also impermanent. With this understanding, we can choose to let go of our frustration and instead bring our attention to the present moment, perhaps by focusing on our breath or appreciating the music on the radio. By accepting the situation as it is, without resisting the reality of the moment, we can find peace even in frustrating circumstances. Practical mindfulness exercises include body scan meditation, bringing awareness to different parts of the body and noticing sensations without judgment. Mindful breathing, focusing on the breath as it moves in and out, anchoring oneself in the present moment. Mindful walking, paying attention to each step, the feeling of the ground beneath your feet, and the sensations in your body as you move. Through these practices, we train our minds to remain present and open to life's inevitable changes, cultivating a sense of peace and equanimity. Gratitude and letting go of expectations. Another powerful practice that arises from the recognition of impermanence is gratitude. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we begin to appreciate the people, experiences, and opportunities that we have right now. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack or what could go wrong to what is abundant in our lives at this moment. In modern society, where consumerism often drives dissatisfaction, practicing gratitude helps counter the constant desire for more. It allows us to savor the present moment and the simple joys of life. By letting go of expectations about how things should be, we open ourselves up to appreciating life as it is. Whether it's the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of laughter, or the kindness of a stranger, gratitude brings us back to the present, where peace and contentment reside. Embracing change and finding peace. In conclusion, the wisdom of impermanence is not a reason to despair but an invitation to live more fully. When we embrace change and let go of the need for control, we free ourselves from much of the anxiety, disappointment, and conflict that arise in daily life. We stop clinging to an illusion of permanence and instead flow with life's natural rhythms, finding peace in the present moment. The Buddha's teaching of impermanence helps us realize that the only constant in life is change. Rather than resisting this truth, we can accept it with grace and ease, allowing us to live with greater freedom, peace, and joy. By integrating impermanence into our daily lives, we can let go of what no longer serves us, settle our quarrels, and live in harmony with ourselves and others. In a world that is constantly shifting, this timeless wisdom offers a pathway to lasting inner peace. Chapter 3: Settling Quarrels in Relationships, a Practical Guide for Today's World. Quarrels are an inevitable part of human relationships, whether in families, friendships, workplaces, or even online interactions. In today's fast-paced, interconnected world, conflicts often arise quickly, fueled by misunderstandings, ego, and the pressure of maintaining personal ideals or societal expectations. However, in light of the Buddha's teaching from the Dhammapada, there are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels. We are invited to reflect on the futility of these quarrels and the peace that comes from reconciliation. This chapter delves into how we can apply the Buddha's wisdom to settle our disputes and heal relationships, with relevance to modern culture and society. The central theme is that by accepting the brevity of life, we can focus on what truly matters, avoiding the pitfalls of conflict and working towards deeper understanding, harmony, and peace. The modern quarrel: understanding why we fight. In today's world, quarrels are not just limited to face-to-face interactions. The rise of social media and the internet has broadened the scope of disagreements. Conflicts erupt online over political differences, cultural beliefs, or even trivial matters. The anonymity of the internet allows people to say things they wouldn't dare express in person, amplifying hostility. Even in personal relationships, the influence of the digital world has complicated communication, leading to misunderstandings that escalate quickly. Modern quarrels often stem from a few common causes. Ego and pride. Many arguments arise from a need to be right or to protect our image. We attach our self-worth to opinions, and when those are challenged, it feels like a personal attack. Miscommunication. In our fast-paced lives, we often misinterpret others' words or intentions. This is worsened by the lack of non-verbal cues in digital communication, where tone and body language are absent. Unresolved emotions. Past hurts and unresolved issues often resurface in new arguments. What appears to be a minor disagreement may be fueled by deeper emotional wounds that have been left unhealed. External stressors. In today's society, we are constantly under pressure. Financial struggles, work stress, and the challenges of balancing personal and professional life all contribute to heightened emotional responses in our interactions. Recognizing these triggers is the first step towards understanding why we quarrel. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that many of these conflicts arise because we are distracted from life's impermanence. By focusing on our temporary disagreements, we forget that life is fleeting, and we lose sight of the importance of compassion, forgiveness, and connection. The cost of holding on to quarrels. Quarrels often start over small misunderstandings, but they can grow into long-standing conflicts that strain relationships. In families, a single unresolved argument can lead to years of estrangement. In friendships, one moment of miscommunication can result in the breakdown of what was once a strong bond. At work, unresolved tensions between colleagues can poison the atmosphere, reducing collaboration and trust. The emotional cost of holding on to quarrels is immense. Studies show that harboring resentment increases stress, anxiety, and depression. When we replay arguments in our minds, it keeps us in a state of emotional turmoil, preventing us from experiencing peace. The Buddha's insight into settling quarrels by recognizing life's impermanence offers a path to release this emotional burden. Physically, holding on to anger and resentment can also have negative consequences. Chronic stress, often fueled by unresolved conflicts, is linked to conditions such as high blood pressure, heart disease, and insomnia. Letting go of quarrels and embracing reconciliation is not just a spiritual practice, it has tangible benefits for our mental and physical health. The power of perspective. Life's brevity is a motivator for peace. In the context of modern life, the Buddha's teaching to settle quarrels in light of our mortality is a profound reminder to reframe our perspective. When we truly understand that life is temporary and that we and the people we quarrel with will one day no longer be here, the urgency to resolve disputes becomes apparent. This doesn't mean we should avoid difficult conversations or compromise our values, but it does mean we can approach disagreements with compassion, patience, and the willingness to forgive. Let's imagine a common scenario. A family member says something hurtful during a heated conversation. Your initial reaction might be to snap back, defend yourself, or escalate the argument. But if you pause and reflect on the fact that life is fleeting, would this quarrel still hold the same weight? The realization that this family member, like yourself, is mortal, that one day, perhaps sooner than you expect, they will no longer be part of your life, can help put the situation in perspective. Is this argument worth the potential damage to your relationship? Acknowledging mortality doesn't diminish the importance of standing up for yourself or addressing issues, but it does shift the focus from winning the argument to preserving the relationship. When we understand that our time with loved ones is limited, we prioritize harmony over being right. Practical steps to settling quarrels. Pause and reflect on mortality. The next time you feel a quarrel brewing, take a moment to pause. Reflect on the Buddha's teaching about the impermanence of life. Ask yourself, if this were my last conversation with this person, how would I want it to go? Is this argument worth the potential damage to our relationship? What can I do to de-escalate the situation without sacrificing my integrity? This simple pause can create enough space for you to respond with kindness instead of reacting with anger. Active listening, hearing beyond words. One of the most powerful tools for settling quarrels is active listening. Often, conflicts escalate because both parties are more focused on making their point than on understanding the other person's perspective. Active listening involves fully concentrating on the speaker without planning your response. Repeating back what you heard to ensure you understood correctly. Asking clarifying questions to deepen your understanding. In today's society, where distractions are constant, giving someone your full attention is an act of kindness that can diffuse tension. When people feel heard, they are more likely to soften their stance and engage in constructive dialogue. For example, imagine a disagreement with a colleague at work. Instead of immediately defending your position, try saying, "I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You feel like I didn't consider your input on the project, is that right?" This approach not only shows that you value their perspective but also opens the door to resolving the issue collaboratively. Empathy practice, seeing the other side. Empathy is the cornerstone of conflict resolution. It's easy to get caught up in your own emotions during a quarrel, but taking a moment to put yourself in the other person's shoes can dramatically shift the dynamic. Ask yourself, what might this person be going through that's causing them to react this way? What fears or insecurities could be driving their behavior? How would I feel if I were in their position? By practicing empathy, you can turn an adversarial conversation into a compassionate exchange. In modern society, where polarization is common, whether in politics, religion, or social issues, empathy allows us to bridge divides. Instead of seeing the other person as an opponent, we begin to see them as a fellow human being who, like us, is struggling to navigate life's challenges. For example, in a political debate with a friend or family member, instead of focusing on your differences, try to understand the experiences or values that shape their beliefs. This doesn't mean you have to agree, but it does allow for a more respectful and less combative conversation. Apology and forgiveness, the courage to let go. Apologizing and forgiving are powerful practices that can transform relationships. However, in today's culture, where admitting fault is often seen as a weakness, many of us struggle to say, "I'm sorry," or to forgive others. The Buddha's teaching on settling quarrels reminds us that life is too short to hold on to grudges. When we understand that we all must die, the need to be right or to hold on to past hurts pales in comparison to the importance of healing relationships. If you've wronged someone, offer a sincere apology without justifying your actions. Simply acknowledge the hurt you've caused and express your desire to make amends. On the other hand, if you've been wronged, practicing forgiveness doesn't mean condoning the behavior, but it does mean releasing yourself from the burden of resentment. The influence of modern media on quarrels. One of the unique challenges of settling quarrels in today's world is the role of media, both traditional and social. News outlets often thrive on conflict, sensationalizing disputes to attract attention. Social media platforms, with their algorithms designed to prioritize engagement, often amplify divisive content, encouraging arguments and creating echo chambers. In this environment, it's easy to get caught up in quarrels, even with strangers online. The anonymity of the internet can lead to hostile exchanges, with little regard for the impact of our words. However, the Buddha's teaching is just as applicable here. Before engaging in an online argument, reflect on the impermanence of life. Ask yourself if this quarrel is worth your time and energy. In many cases, it's more productive to disengage, focus on spreading positivity, or seek constructive conversations that promote understanding rather than division. The wisdom of the Buddha's teaching encourages us to be mindful of how we interact online, recognizing that the person on the other side of the screen is also navigating life's impermanence. Settling quarrels is a path to peace. Settling quarrels in light of the Buddha's teaching on mortality is a practice that can transform our relationships and bring peace into our lives. In today's fast-paced, often contentious world, it's easy to get caught up in arguments and hold on to grudges. But when we reflect on the brevity of life, we gain perspective on what truly matters: compassion, forgiveness, and connection. By pausing to reflect on life's impermanence, practicing active listening, cultivating empathy, and embracing apology and forgiveness, we can settle our quarrels and create more harmonious relationships. This practice not only brings peace to our personal lives but also contributes to a more compassionate and understanding society. The Buddha's timeless wisdom reminds us that life is too short for quarrels. When we realize that we and those we quarrel with will one day no longer be here, we are inspired to let go of conflict and embrace peace. Chapter 4: Ending Hatred and Resentment, A Path to Peace in Modern Society. Hatred and resentment are powerful emotions that can take root in the heart, growing into divisive and destructive forces. In today's culture, these emotions are amplified by the polarized and competitive nature of society, exacerbated by social media, political rhetoric, and daily stresses. Many of us harbor deep-seated resentments, whether they stem from personal relationships, social injustices, or global conflicts. The Buddha's teaching in the Dhammapada on impermanence offers a vital key to ending these toxic emotions and bringing peace to our lives. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels. This profound reminder that our time is limited can transform the way we handle conflict and let go of hatred. If we truly internalize the fact that life is transient, we are more likely to prioritize forgiveness and compassion over the grudges and animosities that often consume us. In this chapter, we will explore the roots of hatred and resentment in modern society, the harm they cause, and practical steps we can take to end these emotions, fostering peace in our lives and communities. The roots of hatred and resentment in today's world. To understand how we can overcome hatred and resentment, we must first examine why these emotions are so pervasive in modern society. While these negative emotions have always existed, certain aspects of contemporary life seem to intensify them. The influence of social media and instant communication. Social media platforms have given us unprecedented access to each other's lives and opinions. While these platforms have many benefits, they can also fuel hatred and resentment. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram often magnify differences in political views, cultural backgrounds, and personal beliefs. Online debates can quickly turn toxic, with people expressing anger and vitriol in ways they might never do face-to-face. The anonymity and immediacy of online communication make it easy to harbor resentment toward others, especially when we feel misunderstood or attacked. Moreover, the culture of likes and followers can breed jealousy and insecurity, causing people to resent those who seem more successful or popular. This can lead to a cycle of negative comparison and self-loathing, further feeding feelings of resentment. Political and social polarization. In many countries, political discourse has become increasingly polarized. This divide can cause people to dehumanize those on the other side of the ideological spectrum, seeing them not as fellow human beings but as enemies. In today's political climate, it is easy to develop hatred for those who hold opposing views, especially when these views touch on deeply personal issues such as identity, religion, or human rights. Resentment also arises from perceived social injustices. Many people feel marginalized or oppressed based on race, gender, or socioeconomic status, which can lead to a deep-seated resentment toward those in power or toward society at large. While anger can be a legitimate response to injustice, allowing it to fester into hatred can prevent healing and progress. The pressure to succeed and compete. Modern life often feels like a race. We are constantly pressured to succeed in our careers, relationships, and personal goals. In a competitive culture, it's easy to develop resentment toward those who seem to have more wealth, more opportunities, or more success. The societal emphasis on achievement can lead to feelings of inadequacy, envy, and ultimately resentment toward those who appear to be ahead. Personal relationships and unresolved conflicts. At the personal level, hatred and resentment can grow out of unresolved conflicts with family members, friends, or romantic partners. Old wounds, misunderstandings, and betrayals can linger in our minds for years, preventing us from finding peace. These feelings often arise from a sense of injustice, believing that we have been wronged and that the other person owes us something, whether it's an apology, recognition, or compensation. The consequences of holding on to hatred and resentment. Hatred and resentment are not just harmful to those at whom they are directed, they are deeply damaging to the person who harbors them. When we allow these emotions to fester, they have a profound impact on our mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. Emotional and mental health. Holding on to resentment can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. When we are consumed by negative emotions, our minds are constantly in a state of turmoil. We may replay past hurts over and over, reinforcing the feeling of being wronged. This can prevent us from experiencing joy, connection, and inner peace. Resentment often leads to a distorted view of reality. We may become fixated on the actions of the person we resent, interpreting their every move as malicious or hurtful, even when that may not be the case. This can make us feel isolated and alienated, as we push away those who might otherwise offer support and understanding. Physical health. The Buddha taught that our mental state has a direct impact on our physical health, and modern science agrees. Studies have shown that chronic anger and resentment can contribute to a host of physical health problems, including high blood pressure, heart disease, and weakened immune function. When we hold on to negative emotions, our bodies remain in a state of stress, releasing hormones like cortisol that can harm our long-term health. Relationships and social connections. Resentment can poison relationships. When we are unable to let go of a past wrong, it affects how we interact with others. We may become defensive, closed off, or even vengeful. This can create a cycle of conflict, where unresolved issues continue to cause friction, making it difficult to rebuild trust or understanding. Furthermore, resentment can spread beyond the original source of conflict. For example, someone who harbors resentment toward a parent may carry that unresolved anger into their romantic relationships or friendships, leading to further disconnection and conflict. The path to ending hatred and resentment. The Buddha's teaching that recognizing the impermanence of life can help us settle our quarrels is a profound antidote to hatred and resentment. When we fully grasp that life is short, we realize that clinging to anger and grudges only wastes the precious time we have. But how do we begin to let go of these deeply ingrained emotions? 1. Cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools for overcoming hatred and resentment. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. When resentment arises, mindfulness allows us to see it for what it is, just a thought or feeling, not an intrinsic part of who we are. Through mindfulness, we can begin to recognize the triggers that lead to our resentment. Maybe it's a comment someone made, or a memory of being wronged. Instead of reacting impulsively or letting the emotion take over, mindfulness gives us the space to pause, reflect, and choose a more compassionate response. Practical steps. Set aside a few minutes each day for mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath and observing any thoughts or emotions that arise without judgment. Throughout the day, practice mindful awareness of your emotional state. When you feel resentment building, take a few deep breaths and acknowledge the emotion without acting on it. 2. Practicing forgiveness. Forgiveness is essential for letting go of hatred and resentment. This doesn't mean condoning the harmful actions of others or ignoring injustice. Rather, forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the emotional burden of holding on to anger. Forgiveness requires empathy, understanding that, just like us, the person who wronged us is also subject to the conditions of impermanence, suffering, and human fallibility. By acknowledging their humanity, we can begin to release the grip that resentment has on us. Practical steps. Reflect on the person who has hurt you. Try to understand their motivations, fears, and struggles. Recognize that their actions, like yours, are influenced by their own suffering and imperfections. Write a letter of forgiveness, even if you don't send it. Express your feelings, then consciously choose to let go of the resentment you've been carrying. 3. Metta loving-kindness meditation. Metta meditation is a Buddhist practice that involves sending thoughts of loving-kindness and compassion to oneself, loved ones, neutral people, and even those we find difficult. This practice helps to soften the heart and dissolve feelings of anger and resentment. By regularly practicing metta meditation, we train our minds to approach others with compassion, even those who have hurt us. This doesn't happen overnight, but with time, it can lead to a profound shift in how we relate to others. Practical steps. Start your metta meditation by focusing on yourself. May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live with ease. Gradually expand your focus to loved ones, neutral people, and eventually, those you feel resentment toward. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you live with ease. Repeat this practice regularly, and over time, notice how your feelings toward others begin to shift. 4. Reframing negative experiences. One powerful way to let go of resentment is to reframe the situation in a way that promotes growth and learning. Instead of seeing the person who hurt you as the cause of your suffering, try to see them as a teacher, someone who, through their actions, has given you the opportunity to practice patience, compassion, and forgiveness. Practical steps. Reflect on a situation where you feel resentment. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? How has this challenge helped me grow as a person? Consider how the situation has made you stronger, more resilient, or more compassionate. By focusing on the positive aspects of the experience, you can begin to let go of the negative emotions associated with it. Choosing peace over hatred. In a world filled with division, competition, and conflict, the Buddha's teaching on impermanence offers a path to inner peace. By recognizing that life is fleeting, we can release the burdens of hatred and resentment, choosing instead to live with compassion and forgiveness. Ending hatred and resentment is not an easy process. It requires mindfulness, effort, and a willingness to let go of the ego's need for validation and revenge. But the rewards are immense. By settling our quarrels and letting go of anger, we free ourselves to live fully in the present moment, creating space for joy, connection, and true peace. As we move forward, let us remember that life is too short to hold on to hatred. By embracing the impermanence of life, we can cultivate a heart of compassion, bringing peace not only to ourselves but to the world around us. Chapter 5, Mortality is a Unifying Force. In our modern world, we often find ourselves divided along lines of race, religion, politics, socioeconomic status, and nationality. The media, social platforms, and political rhetoric fuel these divisions, leading to a pervasive sense of us versus them. We categorize people into groups, whether consciously or unconsciously, based on their appearance, beliefs, or affiliations. These divisions foster a sense of separation, hostility, and often conflict. However, the Buddha's teaching in the Dhammapada, there are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels, offers a powerful antidote to this separation by emphasizing our shared human condition, mortality. Understanding mortality is the great equalizer. In the grand scheme of life, no matter our differences, there is one truth that unites every living being: we are all mortal. We are all on a journey that will ultimately end in death. While this truth can be uncomfortable, it is also profoundly liberating when embraced fully. Mortality is not just a sobering reality but also a potential source of compassion, understanding, and unity. When we reflect deeply on the fact that we, along with every person we encounter, will one day cease to exist, our perspective shifts. Petty disagreements, prejudices, and even deep-seated grudges begin to lose their hold over us. The need to dominate, be right, or prove superiority over others starts to seem insignificant in the face of our shared impermanence. Divisions in today's society, a cultural reflection. Today's cultural landscape is one where divisions seem to be growing rather than shrinking. Political polarization is at an all-time high in many parts of the world, with people seeing those on the opposite side of the spectrum as enemies rather than fellow citizens with differing opinions. Racial and ethnic tensions continue to create rifts, fueled by historical injustices and perpetuated by modern inequalities. Religious differences, too, often spark conflict, even though the core of most religious teachings emphasizes love, compassion, and unity. The rise of social media has further exacerbated these divisions. Algorithms that reward outrage and controversy drive wedges between people, amplifying echo chambers where individuals are exposed only to ideas and opinions that reinforce their pre-existing beliefs. This environment fosters misunderstanding, distrust, and, in extreme cases, hatred toward those who are different. In this context, the Buddha's teaching on mortality offers a crucial reminder of what truly matters. When we pause to reflect on the inevitability of death, the labels and divisions that seem so important in everyday life suddenly feel less significant. We begin to see that beneath our superficial differences, we share the same fears, hopes, and vulnerabilities. Mortality strips away the false distinctions we cling to and reveals our common humanity. Mortality and compassion, a path to understanding. Recognizing our mortality can serve as a powerful tool for cultivating compassion. When we remember that every person we meet, regardless of their race, religion, or political beliefs, will one day die, we are reminded of our shared fragility. This realization can soften our hearts, making it easier to see others not as adversaries but as fellow travelers on the same difficult journey through life. Consider a situation where you find yourself in conflict with someone, perhaps a colleague with whom you have differing views or a family member with whom you've had a long-standing disagreement. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to become entrenched in your position, focused on proving that you are right and the other person is wrong. However, when you take a step back and reflect on the fact that both you and the other person are mortal, it creates space for empathy. You recognize that this person, like you, is subject to the same impermanence, the same struggles, and the same fears. This awareness can help you let go of the need to win the argument and instead prioritize understanding, reconciliation, and peace. In this way, the acknowledgement of mortality encourages us to approach others with kindness, patience, and forgiveness. It reminds us that the time we have with the people in our lives is limited, and that holding on to anger or resentment wastes precious moments that could be spent building meaningful connections. The role of mortality in resolving social divisions. When we apply this understanding of mortality to larger social and cultural divisions, its unifying potential becomes even more apparent. Imagine what might happen if we collectively embraced the reality of our shared mortality as a society. Would we be as quick to judge, stereotype, or dehumanize others? Would we cling to rigid ideologies and exclude those who don't conform to our worldview? Or would we, instead, recognize the futility of these divisions and seek common ground? Let's take the example of political polarization. In many countries, political divisions have become so entrenched that dialogue between opposing sides is virtually non-existent. Each side views the other not merely as wrong but as morally inferior, leading to a breakdown in communication and cooperation. However, if we remind ourselves that everyone, on both sides of the political spectrum, is mortal and will one day die, it changes the stakes. We begin to see that no political ideology is worth sacrificing our shared humanity. This realization doesn't mean we need to abandon our beliefs, but it does encourage us to approach those with differing views with more humility and openness. Similarly, in the context of racial and ethnic tensions, acknowledging our mortality can help bridge divides. When we strip away the layers of prejudice, fear, and misunderstanding, we are left with the simple truth that we are all human beings, bound by the same fate. This understanding can motivate us to work toward healing historical wounds, addressing inequalities, and fostering genuine solidarity across racial and ethnic lines. Practical steps for applying the awareness of mortality. While the recognition of mortality is a powerful tool for fostering unity, it is not enough to simply acknowledge this truth on an intellectual level. To truly transform our relationships and society, we must actively incorporate this awareness into our daily lives. Here are some practical steps for doing so. Reflect on mortality regularly. Make it a habit to reflect on your own mortality and the mortality of others. This could be done through meditation, journaling, or simply taking a few moments each day to remind yourself that life is short. This practice can help you stay grounded in the present and prioritize peace and reconciliation over conflict. Practice empathy. Whenever you find yourself in conflict with someone, whether it's a minor disagreement or a deeper quarrel, pause and remind yourself that this person, like you, is mortal. Ask yourself, if this were the last conversation I ever had with this person, how would I want it to end? This question can help shift your perspective and encourage a more compassionate response. Engage in meaningful dialogue. In today's polarized society, it's easy to retreat into our own echo chambers and avoid engaging with those who hold different views. However, the awareness of mortality can motivate us to step out of our comfort zones and engage in respectful, meaningful dialogue with others. Seek out conversations with people who have different perspectives, and approach these discussions with curiosity and a willingness to understand, rather than a desire to prove a point. Let go of grudges. Holding on to resentment or anger toward someone is like carrying a heavy burden that weighs you down. Reflecting on the impermanence of life can help you let go of this burden. Ask yourself if the grudge you're holding is worth the emotional energy it consumes, especially considering that both you and the person you're angry with will not be here forever. Foster compassionate action. Use the awareness of mortality to guide your actions in daily life. Instead of focusing on winning arguments or proving your superiority, prioritize actions that promote peace, kindness, and understanding. Whether it's offering a kind word to a stranger, forgiving a loved one, or standing up against injustice, let the recognition of our shared humanity inspire you to act with compassion. Cultivate gratitude for relationships. Mortality reminds us that the people in our lives will not be here forever, and neither will we. Take time to express gratitude for your relationships, both with loved ones and with those you may have conflict with. Recognizing the impermanence of life can help you cherish the moments you have with others and focus on building positive, meaningful connections. Mortality is a path to peace. The Buddha's teaching that, those who realize we all must die settle their quarrels, is a profound reminder that the awareness of death can be a powerful catalyst for peace, both on a personal and societal level. In a world where divisions seem to grow deeper each day, the recognition of our shared mortality offers a path toward unity and compassion. By embracing this truth, we can let go of the need to dominate, hold grudges, or perpetuate conflict. Instead, we can focus on what truly matters, cultivating understanding, empathy, and love in the time we have. Ultimately, mortality is not something to fear but something to embrace as a source of wisdom and compassion. When we live with the awareness that life is fleeting, we become more patient, more forgiving, and more connected to others. We realize that our shared journey through life is more important than any disagreement, and that settling our quarrels is the key to finding peace, both within ourselves and in the world around us. Chapter 6: Living with Peace and Purpose in Today's World. In today's fast-paced, ever-connected world, many people find themselves pulled in countless directions, often caught up in a relentless pursuit of success, validation, or the next best thing. This cultural obsession with more, whether it's more wealth, more accomplishments, or more recognition, leaves little room for reflection on what truly matters. We are taught to strive, compete, and win, but rarely to pause and consider how our lives align with deeper, more enduring values. At the heart of the Buddha's teachings is a powerful reminder: life is fleeting and death is inevitable. Those who understand this truth settle their quarrels, not because death is something to fear, but because it is a natural part of the human experience. Acknowledging our mortality isn't about being morbid, it's about cultivating a life of peace and purpose, one that transcends petty conflicts, ego-driven pursuits, and unnecessary stress. This chapter will explore how, by embracing the reality of death and impermanence, we can learn to prioritize peace, let go of the need to be right, and focus on what truly matters. Through practical strategies and thoughtful reflections, we can create lives filled with meaning, harmony, and fulfillment, lives where we are not merely surviving but truly thriving. The culture of distraction and its impact on peace. The modern world bombards us with distractions: social media, news cycles, advertisements, and the constant pull of technology. This constant noise creates a culture where people are more reactive than reflective, more focused on outward success than inner peace. The result: a society where stress, anxiety, and conflict are rampant, where personal relationships are strained, and where people are often disconnected from themselves and others. In such a climate, the Buddha's teaching about the inevitability of death can serve as a grounding force. Recognizing that our time is limited allows us to cut through the distractions and focus on what truly matters. When we acknowledge that we and everyone around us will one day die, it becomes easier to let go of minor irritations, arguments, and ego-driven conflicts. The realization of our shared impermanence can foster empathy, understanding, and a greater sense of connection with others. Practical tip. One way to begin shifting from distraction to reflection is through mindful consumption. Limit the time spent on social media or watching the news, and instead, dedicate more time to activities that foster peace: reading a good book, engaging in meaningful conversation, or practicing mindfulness or meditation. By reducing distractions, you create space to focus on your true values and live with greater purpose. The pursuit of perfection and the need to be right. In today's society, there is often an overwhelming pressure to be perfect, perfect in our jobs, perfect in our relationships, and perfect in our public image. Social media fuels this need by presenting a curated version of life, where everyone seems to be achieving, thriving, and succeeding in ways that are impossible to live up to. This relentless pursuit of perfection creates anxiety, frustration, and conflict, as people struggle to meet unrealistic expectations or feel the need to assert their opinions and win every argument. But when we accept the impermanence of life, we realize that perfection is an illusion. The drive to be right, to have the last word, or to maintain a flawless image no longer holds the same weight. We begin to understand that, in the grand scheme of things, winning an argument or proving ourselves superior is far less important than maintaining peace, both within ourselves and in our relationships. The Buddha's teaching encourages us to prioritize harmony over ego. Quarrels arise when we are attached to being right or when we feel the need to defend our image. But by reflecting on the brevity of life, we can begin to ask ourselves, is this argument truly worth it? Will holding on to this grudge bring me peace? More often than not, the answer is no. Practical tip. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, pause and ask yourself if the conflict is truly meaningful in the context of life's impermanence. Try letting go of the need to be right and instead focus on understanding the other person's perspective. This doesn't mean compromising your values, but rather prioritizing peace over ego-driven conflict. Cultivating inner peace in a chaotic world. In a world where stress is normalized, finding inner peace can feel like an impossible task. Work pressures, financial concerns, family obligations, and social expectations can create a sense of overwhelm that leaves little room for tranquility. Yet, the Buddha's teachings remind us that peace is not something we find outside of ourselves, it is cultivated within. By regularly contemplating the reality of death, we can develop a sense of urgency to live a peaceful life. Instead of waiting for the right time to be at peace, when we've reached a certain career milestone, when we've saved enough money, or when external circumstances are perfect, we can start cultivating peace right now, in the present moment. Practical tip. One powerful tool for cultivating inner peace is meditation. You don't need to dedicate hours each day to meditate, even a few minutes of mindfulness practice can have a profound effect on your sense of well-being. Try setting aside 5 minutes in the morning to sit in silence, focus on your breath, and reflect on the impermanence of life. This simple practice can help you release stress and approach your day with greater calm and clarity. In addition to meditation, practicing gratitude can also bring a sense of peace. Take time each day to reflect on what you are grateful for, whether it's the people in your life, the opportunities you've had, or even small moments of beauty. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing or wrong to what's present and good, fostering a sense of contentment and peace. Letting go of grudges and practicing forgiveness. One of the most toxic forms of mental suffering is holding on to grudges. Whether it's a lingering resentment toward a colleague, a family member, or even a friend, harboring anger drains our energy and keeps us stuck in a cycle of negativity. In today's society, where cancel culture and polarization often dominate public discourse, the tendency to hold on to grudges or seek revenge is amplified. But the Buddha's teaching on the inevitability of death offers a powerful perspective on forgiveness. When we remember that both we and the person we hold a grudge against will one day be gone, the reasons for our resentment begin to lose their intensity. Holding on to anger no longer seems worth it in the face of our shared mortality. Forgiveness, however, does not mean condoning harmful behavior or allowing yourself to be mistreated. Instead, it's about freeing yourself from the emotional burden of anger and resentment. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, a way to release the past and move forward with peace and clarity. Practical tip. If you are struggling with a grudge or resentment, try engaging in metta meditation, also known as loving-kindness meditation. This practice involves sending thoughts of goodwill and compassion to yourself, then extending those thoughts to others, first to loved ones, then to neutral people, and finally to those with whom you have conflict. Over time, this practice can help soften your heart and open the door to forgiveness. Additionally, journaling can be a powerful tool for processing feelings of anger and resentment. Write down the reasons for your grudge, how it has impacted you, and whether holding on to it has brought you peace or suffering. Reflect on whether you are ready to let go and what steps you can take to release the anger and find peace. Choosing purpose over pettiness. In a culture that often values achievement, material success, and external validation, it can be easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Many people spend their lives chasing goals that, in the end, may not bring lasting fulfillment or happiness. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence encourages us to reflect on our deeper purpose in life, rather than getting caught up in petty concerns or superficial pursuits. When we contemplate our mortality, we are reminded that time is our most precious resource. The realization that we will not live forever can serve as a wake-up call to focus on what is truly important, whether it's cultivating meaningful relationships, contributing to the well-being of others, or pursuing a passion that brings us joy and fulfillment. Practical tip. Take some time to reflect on your core values and what gives your life meaning. Ask yourself, what do I want to be remembered for? What brings me a sense of purpose and fulfillment? By aligning your daily actions with these deeper values, you can begin to live a life of purpose rather than one driven by trivial concerns. To make this reflection practical, consider creating a personal mission statement. This statement should reflect your core values and the legacy you wish to leave behind. It can be as simple as, I want to live with kindness and integrity, or, I want to bring joy to others through my creativity. Having this mission statement can serve as a guidepost for your decisions and actions, helping you stay focused on what truly matters. Thriving in the face of impermanence. By embracing the Buddha's teaching on the inevitability of death, we can transform our lives from a series of conflicts, distractions, and pursuits into a journey of peace, purpose, and fulfillment. In today's world, where we are constantly pulled in many directions, reflecting on our mortality can be a powerful tool for prioritizing what truly matters: peace within ourselves, harmony in our relationships, and a life aligned with our deepest values. Ultimately, living with the awareness of impermanence allows us to let go of pettiness, settle our quarrels, and cultivate a sense of inner peace that transcends the chaos of the modern world. It is through this reflection that we find the clarity to live fully, love deeply, and leave behind a legacy of kindness and compassion. Conclusion: finding freedom in impermanence. In modern society, we often live as if time is endless, but beneath the surface, there's a nagging awareness that life is fleeting. Yet, this awareness is often avoided, masked by distractions and preoccupations. The Buddha's teaching that those who realize we all must die settle their quarrels holds profound wisdom that can offer us peace and liberation. By confronting the reality of impermanence, we can free ourselves from the chains of anger, hatred, and unnecessary conflict, and live a life of peace, purpose, and compassion. This teaching is particularly relevant today, where so many are caught in cycles of stress, competition, and conflict. Our fast-paced, success-driven culture encourages us to accumulate wealth, status, and recognition, often at the expense of our mental well-being and relationships. As a result, quarrels are common, whether with family, friends, or colleagues, and often escalate into lasting resentments. Social media, political divisions, and the endless news cycle exacerbate these tensions, fueling anger and discord. Yet, amid this storm, the Buddha's teaching on mortality offers a path to clarity and peace. It reminds us that all of our achievements, conflicts, and possessions are temporary. Recognizing this, we can let go of petty quarrels and live with greater mindfulness, kindness, and understanding. In this conclusion, we will explore how this teaching applies to our modern lives, how it can help us end hatred and resentment, and how it leads to a deeper sense of freedom and peace. 1. Mortality is a mirror, reflecting on what truly matters. In today's world, we are often encouraged to chase after material success, social approval, and personal recognition. Advertisements, social media, and cultural norms push the narrative that happiness comes from external achievements. We are bombarded with images of success, perfect families, luxurious lifestyles, and professional triumphs. Yet, in chasing these goals, we often lose sight of what truly matters: our relationships, our mental health, and our capacity for compassion. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence serves as a mirror, reflecting back to us the fleeting nature of these pursuits. When we recognize that life is finite, we start to question the value of the things we often stress about. Does it truly matter if we win an argument? Is our anger over a trivial slight worth the emotional toll it takes on us? When we remember that one day we, and those we quarrel with, will no longer be here, our perspective shifts. This doesn't mean we should become indifferent to life's challenges. Rather, it means we can approach them with a sense of perspective and balance. By remembering that time is limited, we can prioritize what truly matters: our connections with others, our inner peace, and the love we give and receive. Quarrels, which once seemed so important, lose their intensity when viewed through the lens of mortality. 2. The impermanence of anger and hatred. Anger and hatred are powerful emotions that can consume us, leading to long-lasting grudges and conflicts. In modern society, these emotions are often amplified by external influences. The rise of social media, for instance, has made it easier to express anger quickly and publicly, often escalating conflicts that might have otherwise faded away. Political polarization, identity politics, and media sensationalism further deepen the divides between people, making it seem as if we are constantly at war with one another, whether over beliefs, values, or personal grievances. However, the Buddha's teaching on impermanence reminds us that anger and hatred, like all emotions, are temporary. They are mental states that arise, persist for a time, and eventually fade away. When we hold on to these emotions, we create suffering for ourselves. The more we nurture anger and resentment, the more they dominate our thoughts, our actions, and our relationships. But if we understand the transient nature of these emotions, we can let them pass without becoming attached to them. Imagine you are standing by a river, watching leaves float by. The leaves represent your thoughts and emotions, some may be anger, others may be joy. If you simply watch them pass without clinging to any of them, you remain at peace. But if you grasp at one leaf and try to hold onto it, you disrupt the natural flow of the river. The same is true with anger and hatred. By clinging to these emotions, we disrupt our peace and prolong our suffering. Practical steps for letting go of anger and hatred include mindfulness practices, such as observing our thoughts without judgment, and compassion practices, such as metta meditation. When we reflect on the impermanence of these emotions, we gain the ability to release them before they take root. By doing so, we free ourselves from the cycle of conflict and resentment, making room for peace and understanding. 3. Settling quarrels in a culture of division. In today's world, divisions run deep. Whether due to political, social, or personal differences, many people find themselves in constant conflict with others. Social media platforms often fuel these divisions by creating echo chambers where people only engage with those who share their views, while demonizing those who disagree. This polarization leads to a culture of us versus them, where the goal is not understanding, but winning. The Buddha's teaching on mortality offers a way to transcend these divisions. When we recognize that we are all mortal, that we all face the same inevitable end, it becomes clear that our differences are not as significant as we once thought. Whether someone holds a different political view or has wronged us in the past, the fact remains that they, too, are human, subject to the same joys, sorrows, and impermanence as we are. When we internalize this truth, the urgency to resolve conflicts and let go of resentments becomes apparent. Life is too short to waste on hatred and division. Instead, we can choose to engage with others from a place of compassion and understanding. This doesn't mean we have to agree with everyone or accept harmful behavior, but it does mean we can approach disagreements with empathy rather than hostility. One practical way to apply this in daily life is through active listening. When engaged in a disagreement, instead of planning your response while the other person is speaking, try fully listening to their perspective. This simple act can transform conflicts into opportunities for understanding and connection. By focusing on the humanity of the person in front of us, rather than their perceived flaws or differences, we can settle quarrels and cultivate peace. 4. Finding freedom through acceptance. At the core of the Buddha's teaching on impermanence is the idea of acceptance of life's fleeting nature, of our own mortality, and of the fact that conflict and suffering are part of the human experience. By accepting these truths, we free ourselves from the constant striving for control and certainty that often leads to frustration and conflict. In today's culture, we are often taught to resist uncertainty. We seek control over our lives, our relationships, and our environments, believing that if we can just manage everything perfectly, we will find happiness. But the truth is that life is unpredictable, and control is an illusion. The more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more stress and dissatisfaction we experience. The Buddha's teaching invites us to let go of this need for control and embrace the impermanence of life with openness and acceptance. This doesn't mean giving up on our goals or resigning ourselves to passivity, but rather accepting that life is a dynamic, ever-changing process. When we stop resisting this truth, we open ourselves to the possibility of peace. For example, in relationships, conflicts often arise when we try to control the behavior of others. We expect them to act in certain ways, to meet our needs and expectations, and when they don't, we become frustrated or angry. But if we accept that others are also subject to impermanence, that they, like us, are imperfect and constantly evolving, we can release the need to control them. Instead, we can approach relationships with acceptance, patience, and compassion, creating space for peace and harmony. 5. Living with purpose and compassion. Finally, the recognition of impermanence encourages us to live with greater purpose and compassion. When we realize that life is short, we become more intentional about how we spend our time, how we treat others, and what we prioritize. Instead of getting caught up in trivial matters or holding on to grudges, we can focus on what truly matters, cultivating love, kindness, and connection. In modern society, where busyness is often equated with success, it's easy to lose sight of these deeper values. We rush through our days, ticking off tasks, without pausing to reflect on whether we are living in alignment with our true values. The Buddha's teaching on mortality serves as a wake-up call, reminding us to slow down, to be mindful of our actions, and to prioritize what truly brings us peace. One practical way to live with greater purpose is to regularly reflect on your values and how they align with your daily actions. Are you spending your time in ways that reflect what you truly care about? Are your relationships characterized by love and kindness, or by conflict and resentment? By regularly reflecting on these questions, you can make adjustments to live more in alignment with your values and cultivate a life of peace and purpose. Impermanence is a path to peace. In the end, the Buddha's teaching that those who realize we all must die settle their quarrels offers a profound pathway to peace. By embracing the reality of impermanence, we can free ourselves from the chains of anger, hatred, and division. We can let go of the need to be right, to control, or to hold on to grudges. Instead, we can approach life with compassion, acceptance, and a deep sense of. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's reading and found it inspiring. We look forward to seeing you next time as we continue our journey through the teachings of the Buddha. Your presence means a lot to us, and we can't wait to share more wisdom with you. Until then, take care and stay mindful.